Authors and editors. I was just talking to somebody about a GoFundMe page for raising money to publish their book. And I thought that this is something that I get asked a lot, and perhaps you are an author who is considering putting together a GoFundMe page because you're planning on self-publishing your book or indie publishing your book, or perhaps even for traditional, if you're seeking a traditional book contract, that you want to raise some money for the editing that's going to need to happen before you start querying. Okay, so there's a couple things to think about there, and I'm going to limit this conversation to people who are considering self-publishing or indie publishing because there's far more considerations, and I don't recommend this for traditionally publishing if you're seeking to be traditionally published for reasons that I'm just not even going to go into here. So if you're a self-publishing or considering working with a small indie publisher and are considering a GoFundMe page, a few things to think about before you jump on there and create a page. First of all, you need to really have it nailed down what your production costs are going to be, because if what I've heard authors say is, yeah, I'm going to offer a free book in exchange for a donation. I set up a GoFundMe account, a page for a different purpose a couple years ago, and what I remember, and that things could have changed, but what I remember from that process was that there were different levels of donations that could be done. So, if somebody donated a larger amount, they would expect more than just a book. So you would need to be able to think about, how do you offer people different levels? What are you going to include in those different levels to attract the different donation levels, okay? Now, even if you just decided to go with anybody who donates, X number of dollars or more gets a book, consider that it's possible that most people are going to donate only, maybe $15 or $20, okay? So if that's the case, you need to really understand your production costs of your book, because you're going to be paying back some of that money. So it's not going to be, you might get that, $3,000 or $5,000 up front if you meet that goal, but on the back end, it's going to cost you some money. So if it turns out that after you pay for editing and professional interior book layout, your cover design, your printing costs, all of those things that go into publishing a book, if that is going to cost you $6 or $7 a book, and you have a lot of people who have donated $10, $12, $15, maybe even $20, well, now that number that you are needing to raise to pay for the production of your book just went up by a third or maybe half again as much. So you'll have to set your expectations and your numbers accordingly. The other thing to consider is, how much is your time worth? Because if you have a lot of people who donate, it's wonderful if you reach that level. But again, if you have people that are only donating, maybe $20 or less, even if it was up to $50, you have to consider, why would a bunch of people donate $50 to my cause, right? Now you've got to think like a traditional publisher. Why should they put their money forward and risk their money when all they're going to get is a book in return, right? So maybe that's not a comfortable way to think about it, but that's just the reality. Okay, so even if they're $50 donations, you got to take off the cost of production of your book. But not only that, on the back end, you're going to be launching a book. All of the marketing and all the activity and all just the whirlwind of activity that happens after you launch a book, you're going to be managing all of that, and potentially you have a day job, or even if you're an entrepreneur, this book is to promote your business, right? So how many full-time jobs do you want to have? Then with the GoFundMe stuff, there's an expectation that you are required to reciprocate, to fulfill your promise to those donors within a certain period of time. So on top of all this other work, you're going to need to have stacked up and printed X number of books to fulfill your obligation to your donors. And not only are you going to have to pay for the cost of production for those books, but you're going to have to pay for shipping materials. You're going to have to pay for shipping and handling to those people. And then, like I said, what is your time worth? And I like to think of time as having two components. It's not just time, it's energy and time. So, is that going to be stressful for you? Somebody who gets overstimulated, that's going to be much more stressful for them, and it's going to take a lot of energy from them. So really have to think about it on some different levels. It's not as easy of a thing of just like, okay, great, I'm going to slap up a GoFundMe page for $5,000 and this is going to be wonderful. There's some deeper level and higher level critical thinking that has to go in it. So just really make sure that you understand your production costs, that you get all of your bids and all of that nailed down before you do it, and really consider what it's going to cost you on the back end in time and energy spent. A few things to think about. And then editors, this is valuable information to have and pass on to your clients if they talk about a GoFundMe page. So just tuck that in the back of your mind. This is a way for you to add value to your clients by having some industry knowledge.